Okay, so we're going to go back to the beginning. What was your gut emotional reaction when you first read the screenplay?
Very emotional. Anyone who's loved really hard and lost, I think it really does like strike a nerve or touch a nerve. And I also just really appreciated the kind of the elegance of it, and through the lens of something that's a little bit more stylized, something that maybe has some nostalgia and some movies of old, but also with it being a really grounded, emotional journey for Cass. I just thought it was really beautiful. For me personally, it was quite special because we got to shoot, obviously in London, in my hometown, during a time where it was really hard to make movies. So I think we were also, and also shout out to our incredible DP, Gigi, who just like this, he just brings so much warmth on screen, and it feels so cinematic, and yeah, it was very special because we felt really blessed because we were like, yo, we're making a movie and it's hard to make movies right now, and it was just really, really amazing experience.
Your process working with Kit to kind of develop your relationship.
This cast is so. Oh, they're just amazing, all of them. We are so blessed to have every single person who came and worked on this movie with us. Kit is he's just so generous. He's such a professional. He cares so deeply, and had such an interesting take on Virgil, and brought something really fresh to the role that I don't even think. I'm sure Yaniz will talk about. That was on the page. So he's an absolute dream to work with, and he's sad that he couldn't be here today. But also Simon Callow is, oh my goodness. Simon, we love you. We're so sad you're not here. What an incredible force. He's an iconic actor, and again, so generous, just a consummate professional. He's the sort of person that you could give him a menu to read and it has gravitas,
Yeah.
Just people that have that presence. He brings it, and he really is the heartbeat of the movie, and he's an absolute joy to work with, and I'm just so glad. And Jay, of course, who is just bursting with talent, and he's incredible.
Okay, so when you're structuring the screenplay, you have tragedy, romance, but you also had the fantastical world. How did you balance did you focus on the relationships first before you did the fantastical? What was your structuring style?
Well, from the beginning, I knew I wanted to make a magical realist film. But I don't like, and I don't stick to any particular genre. I like to write and interweave between genres. So utilizing tragedy, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of genre, not in the American sense of the term being horror, but a genre-ish film, magical realism. So it came naturally, and then the balance, I think, came through 40 rewrites, finding, but it all began with the emotional center of the character and her journey. And her journey is basically from closing down as a human being and not having an emotional life anymore after a tragedy, and being able to slowly open up. That process, which is a map-making process, is what mechanically opens her up, but also emotionally opens her up.
But as a writer, you had to track that through time. So that must have been kind of an interesting track. Where is she in each time frame?
Well, I don't want to give away what happens in the movie, but there is a question as to what is actually true and not true in regard to the time travel ideas. And there are a lot of flashbacks to earlier in her life, which inform a map-making journey through the present, which returns her to the past. And that's the key. So it's about map-making and finding memories in the present.
But did you structure, let's say, index card? Did you go straight through?
I don't use index cards, no. I do very different things for very different movies. This movie came through a purge, an emotional purge. I just vomited out the first draft, and in the end it ended up in some weird esoteric place in the first draft, and then it was like noted back to be very much more literal. Other movies, I then wrote for television for years, and they make you outline absolutely everything for each step, in America at least. And so now I oftentimes do films where I actually am structuring beforehand. Depends on the movie.
Now, what did you see in Naomi that you knew she's the only one that could play this character?
I'd known Naomi through her commercial work, through her big films. I knew she was musical, and the main character is a musician. And then I saw I think it was a BBC television show, and she played a secondary part, but her small role blew me away. And I thought she was honest and beautiful and musical, and it's one of those things where you just know that that's your person.
Now, Kit, you're playing a little against type in this movie. What did you say? All right, why? I see this in Kit that he can play this part.
It was only Kit for me. It was always only Kit for me. When I watched Game of Thrones, very different character. Kit has this deep sadness within him that it's a melancholy, but it's also beautiful, and there's a kindness, and I just knew that if he could play the eccentricity of the character, it would transcend. I just knew he could do it, and there was really no other choice. I just knew it was him. I just knew it was him.
And let's start with the directing question. I know you don't give away any plots, but what was the one scene that maybe was the biggest struggle, but in the end, I was really proud it came out. Wow, we pulled this off. Could be even a production challenge.
Production challenge-wise, so we shot 48 locations in 27 days across 4 cities, across London, Bristol, and Cardiff. So everything was a production challenge, and we were trying to create London in Wales and Bristol.
There you go.
So, but what happened? Okay, most difficult. Ended up easiest, but here's the thing: there's a carousel that's in an old abandoned structure that has ruins, and we were supposed to shoot in Cardiff, and we were supposed to bring the carousel into this old ruin, in these old ruins, and it had rained terribly the first week, and the 2 days before they were somebody heard that we were doing it and said the ground is too wet and you might ruin the archaeology and we were just completely freaking out. So we had to then suddenly rent a studio and build in the studio that outdoor space. And what we did was we used pieces of architecture that we built and then used set extensions in post, and we had no idea whether on a huge green screen. We had no idea whether it was going to work. And in the end, if we had shot where we had initially intended to shot, it wouldn't have worked. It worked out well, but it was terrifying. It was so terrifying. Yeah.
All right, so when you first read the screenplay, what was it about the character that made you want to play him?
Well, I thought Julian was a really nice part of being in an opening sequence. I actually compared Julian to Up. That first sequence. I remember watching Up on a plane and just sobbing my eyes out. I just think he's a really fun piece in the film, and I just thought about that a lot, to be honest.
All right, so the movie has tragedy, romance, but also the fantastical world. How did you balance getting to the story, keeping it grounded in reality so you can kind of explore the fantasy elements?
Well, you know what? I just think love is a fantasy sometimes. You know what I mean? I feel like we go through life. For me, at my age, I remember thinking back to when I was a teenager when I found my first love. It was this dream, and then you get a bit older and then you're thinking, okay, cool, let's just ground ourselves and maybe this relationship will last a bit longer. So I love that this film has a great, fantastical, enchanting, whimsical element to it, because I feel like that's what's so beautiful about the best romance films.
And what was the process of collaborating with Kit and Naomi to kind of create the roles?
Well, you know what? I only spoke to Kit once. I just saw him in passing. But he's a lovely dude. But Naomi's the best. You know, she just she really looked after me. I had to throw myself straight into the project. I came in a little bit later. But man, she is an incredible producer. She's an amazing actor. And I feel like we had a great chemistry.
And how is it now coming to Toronto and showing it off appearing today in the Toronto Film Festival?
I love Toronto. I love Toronto so much. Honestly, I've got friends and like people that I call family here. I really think it's a home away from home. And I'm so proud to be here, man. I was here a few years ago watching films, and it really was a dream to be here at TIFF. So I keep pinching myself, honestly.
You had this wonderful film, tragic, but also, you know, time travel and beautiful. What was your process of balancing trying to keep the score based in reality, even though it's in a fantasy world?
Well, I feel like it's better to lean into the fantasy, to essentially bring the audience into the magic and make them feel like the magic is real, so that, you know, when you're experiencing the film, you're experiencing it from the point of view of the characters who believe in magic and fantasy and things like that. So I think it was important to do the opposite of reality and just go full steam ahead.
Now, there is time travel.
Yes, there is.
So when you go into different time periods, how did that change your composing strategy?
It was just overall thematic materials. So the themes will evolve depending on the situation. So each character has their theme. Malcolm has his theme, Virgil, Cass. And so depending on the situation that they're in, it'll evolve. Maybe it'll be a little jazzy, or maybe it'll be a little orchestral, or maybe it'll be a little exotic with some gamelan. So.
And when you're diving into more of the tragic elements, the actual real, how did that change your composing?
Actually, I find that when you're scoring tragedy, it's better to stay a little neutral and a little on the warmer side, because that won't bring the audience down so badly, but it will affect them emotionally. So.
Now, last question. Just curious, you did another movie, Swipe, that's here.
Yes.
So how do you approach composing a film that's based in reality? Fully, what was the difference in that strategy for composing that film?
Well, Swiped was the exact opposite, obviously. It was a lot of synthesizers, a lot of me on my bass guitar, and so it was, think like if you mix Beethoven with indie rock with synthwave, and that's Swiped, which is the exact opposite of Eternal Return.
All right, so when you first read the screenplay, what was your gut emotional reaction?
My emotional reaction was, I was like hit in the gut. Like it's a very powerful story. It's very inspiring, and I was really profoundly moved by this woman who was so young, in her 20s, not only achieving such greatness in her space and in her industry, but impacting, making real change, and also having to put up with a lot, you know, and to do that as a young woman, and to pull yourself back up and rise up and channel that into something good. I think that's a great message for everyone out there who's having a hard time or doesn't think that they can make it. And for me, that story felt important and inspiring.
So let's go. All right. So obviously inspired by Breathless, of course. When you're working with the writers, though, you know screenplay structure very well. But the film itself broke a lot of rules. So what was your process working with the writers where you need to do a movie, but also a movie that's open to breaking the rules?
Yeah, I mean, Godard's Breathless breaks more rules than Nouvelle Vague. I always thought the movie I'm making isn't a Godard film. It's about the making of Breathless. It's about the community surrounding the Nouvelle Vague. But the film itself, I wasn't doing like jump cuts, and you know that worked once. That worked great once in one film for Godard, and his cinematic brain is so unique to himself. You can't really imitate it. So what I was trying to capture was the feel of that era and all that. And you know, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of films like Nouvelle Vague when I made it. It's really trying to be a film from another era. I'm making a film saying this film was made in 1959. That's how I wanted it to feel. So that's pretty radical in itself. But as far as screenplay structure, you know, there's a certain straightforward quality to it, linear. You know, I'm not jumping back in time or doing anything structurally crazy. It's really more the subject matter.
Now, obviously, the most big character is Godard.
Yeah,
What did you see in Guillermo? It's like he's the one who can play the character.
Yeah, whew. I mean, if you don't get a Godard, you don't have a movie, right? When you do these kind of things. So I actually met quite a few actors who could pass for looking like him, but it was really more the attitude. You know, I call it the unearned like confidence and swagger of a first-time filmmaker. You know, they walk around like a general without an army. You know, like they have a little thing, and you're like, wait, you haven't done anything. Who the hell are you? And they're like, hey, I'm a, you know. So I remember that feeling, and so we're trying to capture that. And Godard's head is full of, you know, a lifetime of quotes and ideas about art, all the cinematic ideas. So he quotes a lot. You could argue he's really full of crap. But, you know, and no one knows he's making a masterpiece for sure. There's a one-man cinema revolution going on. And I think the people are with it, but they're still a little skeptical. So.
And our last question is Zoe Deutsch playing Jean Seberg. Another challenging part, obviously, and the only American, if I'm not mistaken, cast member. So what did you see in Zoe? You said, you know what, she can pull this off.
I worked with Zoe a while back, and I remember I was already contemplating this film. And I told her, I was looking at her, I was like, you know, you got Jean Seberg right here. I believe you as Jean Seberg. The hair has to change, everything else, but you're going to play Jean Seberg in this movie I'm going to make someday. And I was so happy to be able to, you know, we've been friends over the years, and we'd occasionally talk about it. I said, yeah, I'm going to get that made. And then finally I called her and said, hey, Zoe, I think I got backing. I think we're going to do it. Better get going on your French and start thinking about the hair, and let's go. But it was exciting, and she's really thrilling in the movie. I just love how hard she worked and what she brought to it. And yeah, I can't imagine anybody else.
When you first read the screenplay, what was your emotional reaction to the script and your character?
Yeah, so the first time I read the script, I just got the audition of 8 hours with Richard Linklater, and I didn't know if I had the part or not. And so I had mixed reaction, and my first was like, finally I can do something great with cinema, you know, because it's been maybe 12 years I was doing a lot of different things in cinema, like every job you can imagine on a set and in production and distribution, I have done. And so reading it, I was really proud to be allowed to maybe do something great, you know, it was not already there. And also I got scared a little bit because I saw like my name, the name of the character Godard on every page. So for a first feature, because I was an extra before, you know, this is my first feature film, and I got the lead part, you know, this was really scary and both exciting at the same time. This was completely nuts.
And what was it like working with Zoe Deutsch playing Jean Seberg?
You know, Zoe Deutsch is one of the greatest actress nowadays, you know. So, and also, like, you know, meeting like a real star and having to fake like you're on the same level is very complicated at the beginning. So my only way was to correct her with her French, and at first I saw her look like, who's this guy? But it was good because it gave us the dynamic that should have been the case back then with Godard and Jean Seberg, because Godard was a nobody and Jean was already kind of a rock star at the time. So it was so great to start that way.
What was the challenge in adapting the script that breaks all the rules?
The challenge was first to make sure that everything he says in the movie, he said it or wrote it. That was my first challenge. Second challenge was to make sure we stayed in the language of 59. That was the toughest thing, because the language has changed so much in 60 years. There are words they didn't use, we now use, or the opposite. So I really had to be very cautious on that. And then capture the humor that he had. And I was guided by the fact that I knew deep inside that he would be so happy that an American director would be doing this movie. It's obvious. He loved that. He loved American films, he loved American auteur, and he would have, it's a match made in heaven, and I'm sure up there he's very happy.
Ms. Haas, when you first read the screenplay, what was your gut and emotional reaction that said, I've got to play this part?
I knew the play very well, the original play, and I read the script and I thought, why has no one ever thought about this before? To turn the male role of Eilert Löfborg into a female. And it changed the whole dynamic of the whole story. It became its own thing. It's three females in the center of this who are complex, who are witty, who are intelligent, who are broken, who are fighters, who are funny, who enjoy life and who enjoy their sexuality, and who challenge the world around them. And I had never envisioned that in this play like that. So it got me very excited.
What was your gut reaction when you first read the screenplay?
Oh, I thought it was so cool and interesting, and I'd read the play and was familiar with the play, and I'd seen a production with Ruth Wilson in London that was astounding. She was amazing, but it was just really, really great to understand that younger audiences would then have a chance to see this play as a film, because I think that can be quite intimidating and it can feel dusty or inaccessible. But I think Nia's take on it was very fresh and relevant, and by changing Lovborg to a female character, she could hire Nina Hoss, and that's so cool. And yeah, it was just a really, really vibrant set, and hopefully that comes across in the movie. I haven't seen it, I'm seeing it tonight, which is very exciting.
You have a lot of experience as an actor. You have experience coming to America to make it in America. As an artist, how did that help you, ground you to do this as your first directorial movie?
I don't really think it was me coming to America that it was like I was waiting for something that spoke to me personally, and the journey that they go on, which is getting what you want to do, doing what you want to do. How much are you willing to sacrifice? How much are you willing to sacrifice your blood, sweat, and tears? That's okay. That's fine. Are you willing to sacrifice your integrity, your identity, your authenticity? That's not necessarily okay. And I've definitely, any actor, whether they're successful or not, actually walks that line. That is the story, part of the story of being an actor. This story about these two boys is massively about that. So in my own less sensational way, I understand what they went through. They went much further and paid a greater price than I've ever had to pay. So that spoke to me personally. Also as well, I know what it's like walking into a room, opening my mouth, and some people can totally understand what I say, and some people are like, it's gorgeous, I love it, I don't know what he's saying. And there's and maybe that's part of the reason why they're just, most people can't name 5 Scottish movies other than Braveheart and Trainspotting, and which were 30 odd years ago. So that it made it all very important to me to make this film.
All right, so when you first read the screenplay, what was your gut emotional reaction that said, you know what, I've got to play this character?
It's just what a story, and if I had the gift of playing this complex, just wild guy, it would be too good to be true, and especially with James McAvoy. And when I met him in the audition process, it was just it was just really fun, and just Callian and James just both gave me and Sam and Lucy the freedom to just be ourselves and just have fun with it. That's what the story's about, really, is that themselves just being wild and free.
And now you're creating characters that's within a character. Yeah. You're really playing multiple characters. Yeah. How fun was creating your separate characters and kind of merging them together?
Well, I think of it as 2 different characters almost. There's Brains in the second half, and there's Gavin, kind of shy in himself, not comfortable in his world. And when hopefully we see Brains, he's just in his element. And he's just a different creature, and he just lives for it. And I certainly connect with that. When I'm acting, I feel so aligned and so full of purpose. Sometimes I struggle in my day-to-day life when I'm not doing my job. I can really connect with Abba Gavin.
Now, having an actor who has a lot of experience, as an actor, and also coming to America, in art, did that help connect with him as a director, knowing that he knew your language as an actor?
Yeah, he's a Glasgow boy as well, but also common language in terms of acting. Absolutely. He was just open to play, man, and but it was a flash in the pan. It felt like it's 4 weeks shooting. It's hard to remember it. It was just so intense, and every day you're at it. You're in every day, but you just get into rhythm with it. And me and Sam were just kind of just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what worked. While James was on the handheld, just being like, "That's funny. Say that. Say it louder." So it was a joy, man. Yeah, we're very lucky.
So when you first read the screenplay, what was it about it emotionally that grabbed you? Say, you know what, I've got to play this part.
I think the fact that the first audition that I actually did was a scene where I was switching from American to Scottish, and I thought that was a really mad idea, and I think it'd be like a good showcase of like being able to do both accents. But like at its core, it's a story about two friends that have like big dreams, and they're dreaming big, and they want to like they just want to take on the world, man. And like I relate to that big ambition, you know what I mean, and love for hip hop. It's a story about two lads that love music, and that's a special story to be a part of, man.
Now, having James McAvoy, who also was an actor, but someone who came to America too, trying to make it big, how did that help ground you in working with him for your character?
Well, you know what? I think it instills a lot of confidence in you just initially when like he's cast you in his films. You know what I mean? So that installs a lot of confidence in you anyway. That someone like of that caliber wants you in their film, and he's amazing, man. He was very, very generous with the information and the time that he gave us. Do you know what I mean? We went through like 2 weeks, 3 weeks of rehearsing, and he really made sure that he took time to make sure that we understood our characters. Do you know what I mean? And like we workshopped it, got it to where it needed to be. Yeah, man, he's ace. For two young actors to like work with him, it was like jumping. It was like how high? Do you know what I mean?
All right. So, what was it about this story that really engaged you and made you want to be a part of it?
I think essentially for myself, the crux of this story is that it's about individuals. Yes, in this film they're Scottish, but it's about individuals who have been perceived by the sound of their voice or the country they're from or the language they speak rather than the talent and abilities that they have to offer the world. And that judgment based on those facets of a person is an aspect that we see routinely to this day, in society. And it's like we make these judgments about individuals based off, the sound of their voice, the language they speak, the country they're from, and we fail to see that actually what they've got to offer is separate from all of that. And so I really hope that this film highlights just how utterly ridiculous that sentiment is, and that you know what, sometimes a Scottish accent is all you're going to want to hear, and I really hope people understand that they're not, a Scottish accent isn't just for comedic relief or a caricature, it's actually like a really nice sound.
What was it about this story that made you want to write it?
It was the character of Tony at first, was obviously this firebrand, this loquacious figure that is, committing this crime live on the airways, but then also having the audacity to crack these jokes with the cops, to get emotional and teary-eyed during the press conference, to, ask for a sip of water and to drink it like a baby bird. Like, all those things were so rich in character. So I was always writing from character first, and I wanted to see the character of Tony on screen, but then in the process of writing it, it was his dynamic with Richard and the fortitude of Richard Hall and his strength. And to me, the movie only works because of the two of them together. It's what Dacre does with his eyes as Richard Hall, and the depth that he brings. I grew up with low income, single mother household, and then when I went to film school, sometimes I was surrounded by people that come from wealth, like Richard's character did, and it was easy for me to have a chip on my shoulder about them. But in getting to know them and working with them, I found to have a lot more empathy, and I think that's hopefully what is brought to this movie, is that maybe the magic trick is if you go in wanting to root for Tony, you come out of it actually having a lot of empathy for Richard Hall and understanding that he is a human being that didn't deserve to be in that situation.
And our last question, how fun was it writing a 70s style screenplay? That old, there's such a great genre. Yes, it's
Okay,
so how fun was it to actually, and also updated obviously for today, but how fun was it?
Oh, it's a blast. I mean, I have to credit, Tony. Tony in many ways should be a co-writer of this movie. So much of the dialogue in this movie is actually what he said. And then, I didn't grow up in the 70s, but it's good to know that it maybe passed the smell test for you. And yeah, I watch so many 70s films. So I think it's, by osmosis, I've tried to translate it to my writing in this one. So I'm glad it worked for you. Thank you.
What was the process for you grounding your character in the nice 70s costumes and production design, all that kind of fun stuff?
Good question. Yeah, I was very lucky in that I went to Indianapolis before the movie started, and I met with my character's two sons, Mike and Jason, Mike Jr., and they opened their hearts and their archives to me. They gave me all this material for me to work with. They gave me audio so I could listen to him all day. They had footage from a documentary on Dead Man's Wire, the outtakes. I had all this, which for an actor is so rich. You have all this material on your phone all day long. So it really helped me a great deal. They were terrific.
Okay, so when you first read the screenplay to Carl, what was it about it that emotionally grabbed you? You know, for the artist side, you know, the wanting to make the film, and then we'll talk about the business side.
Well, it's got all the things you would hope for in an animated film. It's got wit, it's got emotion, it's got a kind of debate going on about the place of art and culture, and it's got a kind of amazing understanding of young people's lives, as well as a kind of understanding of disappointment in later life. So it's got everything you would hope.
Now, you love the screenplay, but as a producer, you got to make the movie, which is a different animal. So what was the biggest challenge for you trying to create the 1916 feel of the film?
Well, the problem with independent cinema at the moment is it's very hard to get a decent budget. So the biggest challenge is doing 1916 with a lot of singers on stage every day on a very tight budget, which we had to get together for this.
And then last question. So, would you recommend then, whenever you have a low-budget movie, make sure you cast Ralph Fiennes? Does that help the film?
It helps a bit. I mean, if you don't cast Ralph Fiennes, you probably don't get to make the movie at all, or somebody like him.
But what did he bring to you? You think that really brought the film?
He was.
That's so
We never had anyone in our sights for this. It was always Ralph. I mean, we didn't even discuss any other actors, and we're just so pleased that he wanted to do it. Actually. And he took it really seriously. You know, he had to learn to conduct, and it's not something he's done before, and he was brilliantly studious about it.
What was it about this project that really made you want to compose?
Well, Edward Berger was the first person that was very important that I want to compose it. I mean, we both work so well with each other that I'm, obviously I read the script, but I have mostly the trust that when he is saying yes to a script, that it's not a bad script. And that is wonderful, because then I can, in a way, feel like, okay, if he's doing this film, I want to, be a part of it. Obviously, when I read it, I found it fantastic, and I also felt that the trippiness of the film, I really loved that. I haven't done with him. I have done one, Patrick Melrose, the series, where we had also a kind of trip involved, which I found gives you a lot of opportunities of making weird sounds, and you can get into maybe more in a club mood rather than being like very classical.
Now, for the theme of Colin, you have someone living a double life,
Yeah.
hiding its true identity. How did you approach composing somebody who's leading two different lives?
Well, I used woodwinds that are very fragile, like they play one melody that is coming like a shadow every now and then. You hear it like a wind blow. That's for me the ghost melody that is very emotional and fragile. And then there is this nasty low brass elements that are in a way like, playing in a way his nastiness, but also the way he walks and, like being the boss in the casino, kind of, And I think I think these two sides in a player, I think there's one that is like really, yes, I can do everything, and then there's the brokenness, and you have to find a way to cover both of those.
And what was your reaction when you finally saw the final cut with your music over these wonderful performances?
I mean, that's always like, how can I say it? It's like Christmas. I mean, you get a package and you unwrap it and you're like, what? And I mean, it's also, you see the first time it on a big screen. I love this moment so much.
Hi, so when you first read the screenplay, what was it about that says, I have to play in this part?
Oh my God. This screenplay is so funny and had me like hooked immediately. It was more just like I wanted to be a part of the movie at a whole. Like I was like, I have to just be a part of this, and I'm such a huge fan of Cooper and Nico and Andrew and Leslie and like literally everyone involved. So yeah, I just kind of, but the script is so funny, and I think humor is genuinely so hard to write, and sometimes it can be missed, and it really just landed.
Now, how was it having Maud direct you, so a contemporary who understands what it's to be an actor?
Yeah, Maud we were all so impressed by her. It was her first time, but it also like didn't really feel like that. She's grown up in it and really knows, like she really knows what she wants, and has just like learned so much growing up the way that she did, and she really like took everything that she learned and like, yeah, she did a beautiful job.
So when you first read the screenplay, what was it about the character and the story that said, you know what, I really want to play this part?
It's really, the character is really funny and weird, and so I knew that would be fun. And then I do love this story because it's very sweet and it goes against expectations in a lot of ways. Like it deals with a mom whose daughter's about to go off to college, but it deals with it from a perspective of the mom being a fully formed human being with an inner life that you empathize with, instead of it being a cliched empty nest surface level. It's so and the friendship with Cooper and Andrew is really funny and sweet and heart-wrenching, and their feelings for Leslie, for her character in the film, they're romantic, but none of it is like her character is always appropriate with them. So it never feels like a weird, raunchy. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't kids having sex in the movie about college, but it's just so different from the expectations if you just heard what it's about. It's so much more surprising and funny.
And for Maud, what is she, as talented young director, what did she bring to the project, do you think, collaborating with Maud Apatow?
She's one of the main reasons I wanted to do it. I was really excited to get to work with her in her directorial debut. And then I loved the way that she worked, because she would show up knowing what she wanted, but she also supported everybody pitching alternate lines and letting people do takes that were off script. And that was really special, because you felt like the day would move and you felt like someone was in charge and knew what they were doing, but everybody had her support to be like, hey, can I try it this way or have this different joke? And so it was really fun.
So when you first sat down to write the screenplay, it's wonderfully dramatic, also very funny, brilliantly funny. What did you focus more on? Did you want to get your character's dramatic arc and the foundation, or did that come from the comic, or did you you mix it at the same time?
Such a good question. I think I try to listen to how the characters talk and really get into their voices. Honestly, before I think of the dramatic arc of the whole thing, I just kind of riff on what these two people would talk about, and then what the main character would talk about. Yeah.
Now, it's obviously generational. We college, the adult in college. What was the process of kind of trying to set up their relationship and the generational gap between them?
That was a huge part of it. I think it's about these three people in similar times in their life, even though they're at very different times in their life, and connecting about that. Yeah.
And how'd you feel Maud Apatow, a great young director, taking the reins of your script and making it put it on the screen?
I'm so honored. I'm so grateful. I can't believe this is her debut. She's so talented and lovely, and I love her. Yeah.
What was it about the original book that said to you, I've got to make this film?
I didn't want to make the film initially. I read the book, I loved the book, and I thought it was incredibly difficult to adapt it, and it was incredibly difficult to adapt it, but at some point it felt like it hit a nerve, that there was something about this book that really touched something contemporary, that explained a lot about what has been changing deeply in modern politics, and I thought it was really a great opportunity.
Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful film. We really liked how you captured her isolation, your lead character's isolation, especially in the scene at the hospital when she confesses what happened tragically. What was your approach in kind of like shooting that scene and in general showing your lead character's isolation?
首先，谢谢。这个在医院这场戏，首先我们确定的是必须要再找一个真实的环境来拍摄，虽然我们知道是非常的困难。但是我们因为看了这个真实的医院的这个场景，我们也看了很多的其他的场景，但是我们还是决定在这个医院真实的环境来去拍摄。我们去解决了一些的场地的困难、人员的困难，去克服了这些困难。要的是这样的一个人和在环境的那种真实感是第一位的。第二，是在那样一个非常嘈杂，因为它是一个急诊 emergency 是吧 need 那么一个地方。因为他的人是非常多的，所以呢，而这个两个人物，我觉得是在那一场里面最为关键的一个相互袒露了各自的隐秘，尤其是这个美云袒露了她隐藏多年的一个隐秘。一个女人，我觉得她能够把自己的隐秘袒露出来，其实她就交出了她自己的一张底牌。 你的脸上。
So first of all, thank you very much. And the scene for the hospital, first of all, we really need to prioritize the authenticity of the context. We have to make sure it is an authentic, a real hospital. So we check out different settings. We just want to find a very authentic context where all of this happened. So we sorted out a lot of things. It's very hard to find a real hospital to allow us to film there. So we sorted out the logistics issues here, and eventually we found this very authentic and real hospital. Also because it is an emergency room, so it's very busy, crowded with a lot of people. However, it is a very major scene between the two characters because they both confess, the woman, especially Mei Yun, the female character, confessed the deepest secret that she has been kept to herself for so many years. And for a woman to be able to let go of that secret is showing all of herself. So it's a major scene. It's very important that we keep the authenticity.
所以我觉得女人如果把自己的内心都告诉给你的时候，其实她在这个时刻，她已经做好了放弃的准备了。
And I think for a woman, when she is giving all of her heart out, she's letting go the deepest secret down to her heart, then it basically means that she's ready to give herself.
And our last question, what did you see in your star, lovely actress, that made you know she's the one to play the part?
因为她是中国现在最好的演员之一，她是我觉得是最重要的几个点是：一，她要有非常好的创造能力；第二，就是有非常好的表达能力、表现力；第三，她的有好的这个审美的判断力。
So first of all, she is one of the best actors in China at the moment, and she has very unique and best creative talents, first of all, and she's a very, very good performer to convey the impressions, to convey the emotions, and also she is very good at giving out very intense performances, and also what's important is that she has to have a very good aesthetic value.
So what was it about this story that made you want to initially write the screenplay?
It was just a weird idea that I had for a scene in particular that's like the climax of the movie that I kind of wrote as a little short film, and then over time, sharing it with people, with community members, with other filmmakers, it sort of grew and grew and grew from there.
Now, you have a supernatural element to the film, but you also have a grounded relationship. When you were writing, did you want to focus on the grounded relationship first, and then the supernatural element came from there? How did you approach the screenplay structure?
The structural approach was actually more inspired by indigenous oral storytelling. So it's not necessarily one before the other, more like holistically it was all at once, all came out in whatever order it desired.
And what was the biggest challenge in directing the film?
Everything. It seems like it's always everything's a challenge, but like balancing all of those elements is very difficult, especially when a film set works it's quite rigid and regimental. So it's sort of like make sure there's space for like that magical stuff, those like little hidden relationships.
Given the indigenous nature of the film, how is it for you being at the Toronto Film Festival, showing it and premiering it here in Toronto?
Mind-blowing, fantastic, amazing. Like I won't believe it until it happens, which it will in an hour or so. So once it's over, I'll probably be walking around like with a dazed look on my face.
When you first read the screenplay, what was it about the story and your character that said, you know what, I've got to play in this movie?
So there was something very, very clear about Michele's character, this sort of hidden strength. This very, I guess, quiet sort of strength that spoke to me that was very hard to execute, I think, just on paper. And I really wanted the chance to bring it to life. I really wanted the chance to bring Michele's inner sort of dialogue that I think speaks to a lot of what queer people today may be struggling with to a wider audience. And it was just so much fun to be able to put so much of myself in this character. It's something I haven't really done before, as much of myself in something like this.
What was the challenge of kind of balancing the supernatural elements, but want to also keep your character grounded in reality?
Oh gosh, that was a lot of relying on Bretten. It was a lot of relying because I will definitely take the supernatural stuff. I am a horror movie junkie. I love those conventions, but there's such subtlety and such, bending of genres that it was very important for me to talk with Bretten and just know how to balance it all. I give full credit to Bretten. They were just an absolute pleasure to work with.
When you first read the screenplay, What was it about your character that emotionally grabbed you and said, you know what, I've got to play in this movie?
I think I've never read a lot of like native leading men roles, and I think exploring like the indigenous perspective from like a masculinity standpoint is so interesting to me. And like the character being a father, but also having sort of a complicated relationship with his brother, I think is something that we don't see explored in film, but also just in general in Indian country. I think having men be able to connect with each other in this way, whether it be in real life or in film, is really meaningful. So that's immediately what drew me to the project.
So you mentioned the emotionality of the characters I want to talk to you about. Did that help you ground you in your character so you can have kind of fun with the supernatural part?
I think, yes, everything I do has to be grounded, but then once you have the character and you have the grounded like thing as an actor, like you can have fun in the genre, which meant a lot of black fungus in this one. Yeah.
And what does it mean for you bringing this film, the indigenous film, based to the Toronto Film Festival and premiering it here? What does that experience mean to you?
Canada's been extremely good to me, and I've been all across this beautiful country, and premiering our film in Toronto is just like special because it is a Canadian film and it is taking place here. The crew is from here, and we're happy to be here.
Okay, so my question is, so what was it about this story that emotionally grabbed you? You said, I want to come on board to compose it.
There was so much. I think the themes of time and water and ancestors and just knowing Brett and their work previously with Wildhood. I had been involved a little bit and had my music a part of that film as well. So I just knew that they held our stories and our culture and our language so beautifully. I come from a neighboring nation, so I'm from Wolastoq, and they're from Mi'kmaq. So, but our cultures are really connected, and our languages are very similar. So for me, it felt very good to have the language so woven throughout the story, and then because our indigenous languages are so musical, you know. And so for me, as a composer, finding a way to highlight that and capture that was an exciting challenge. And this is my first film, so it was you got to kind of figure it out as you go. But they trusted me so much to do that, and I'm so appreciative. You know, it felt really good. And to have it filmed also in our territory, out east, that was really exciting as well.
From the composing standpoint, what was the challenge in trying to balance the supernatural elements but keeping the film grounded in reality and using music to help you with that?
Well, that's the question, you know. It was a difficult one to answer. I think I built this score with my producer and dear friend Devin Bate, and we talked a lot about using organic instruments, and you know, not really. I mean, there's so many ways to create a horrorscape, you know, or to create that tension in sound. And it's been done so many ways. And so to find a pathway through something that felt organic and felt fresh, that was a challenge. It was, but I'm so proud of what we came to. And we were surrounded by so many amazing improvisers and collaborators that brought the soundtrack together. So I'm just like, I can't wait for people to hear it. I'm super excited.
So when you were structuring the screenplay, did you want to focus on more the dramatic storyline and let the comedy come from that, or did you think comedy first?
You know, for the structure, drama. You know, I was thinking very kind of classic melodrama, TV movie, which those things are actually quite Greek. Yeah. You know, tragedy befalls those people, and so it was structured like a drama. When I started writing the dialogue, that's when the comedy was coming out. And then once I got about 6 pages in, it to me became a total went back to being a drama, and I was like and I knew that it had these comic overtones, but I was like totally swept up into it, and I was very moved by it.
So then from the directing standpoint with your cast, it must have been easier for you than directing the comedy aspect, knowing that you had the dramatic backbone.
Yes, totally. And everyone, it was so sweet. Everyone, I didn't have to say anything. Like I thought I would have to really explain the tone because it's a very tricky tone, but everyone just showed up and totally emotionally committed. They just went for it, and I always thought I had to can you make it more real, but everyone just did it. It was amazing.
Was there any scene that was most particularly to get right for you from your script phase to the directing? Like, oh my God, this is the one that took a while, but I'm
Yeah.
proud of it.
Everything went so fast. I mean, there was on a kind of directorial performance level, I think there's like a big therapy scene in the style of Marnie or Suddenly Last Summer that I was, that was a very tricky balance of like melodrama, kind of camp and sincerity, and that was a very, very tricky thing to direct while doing it.
Yes.
Very hard to direct the other actors while you're trying to also act it.
Was that something difficult where in some scenes you had to like have two different brains going at the same time?
Yes, always. But I'm used to that. I make a lot of my own work and I edit myself a lot, and so I kind of am good at the Sybil,
So that was in your film school?
What?
That was your film school, preparing for
Exactly.
made you ready to do this kind of
No,
film.
exactly. Doing like sketch comedy and that's where I've learned how to direct myself.
All right, so then what was it about the screenplay that initially attracted you to be part of the project as a producer and actor?
I thought it was really funny. I thought it was really, really funny, and I read a lot of independent scripts, and a lot of them are dramas, and I prefer comedy, and this was a comedy, and it was a good comedy, and so I think that's what really drew me to it.
A good comedy is a good drama at its heart, because without the dramatic storyline, the comedy will fall flat.
Yes.
How do you feel about the balance between the dramatic elements of the very serious issue, but balancing it with the comedy?
I think that's the way to do it. I think that's the most effective way to have difficult conversations is through humor. I think that's also part of what drew me to it, was that there were a lot of scenes that were very relatable, but also very funny.
When you originally first read the screenplay, what was it about it that emotionally grabbed you?
I think that I would trust John implicitly with anything that he's doing, and I think that the campiness of it, but also sort of the earnestness of it, really made me want to do it.
Now, do you think the great dramatic backbone of your character helped you kind of have fun with the comedy?
Yes, I think so. John really wanted me to play it kind of earnestly and real, and that was really fun. And honestly, any opportunity to do a scene with John is such a dream because he's so great and so talented and so funny, and so there was like a freedom in being able to just play it very kind of grounded.
But also you're exploring a very serious topic,
Yes.
which I loved about the film. What was the process of kind of diving deep into a very dramatic topic like this?
Yes. What was it like?
What was it like for you? Yeah.
It was, it was great. I mean, I enjoy doing drama as much as, comedy comes to me a little easier, but I like doing a dramatic thing, and it's nice to sort of be in that world where you're like, trying to tackle something that's more serious.
But even in sketch comedy, you have to find the dramatic nugget quickly.
Not always.
Not always.
Sometimes you do.
Sometimes you do. And was there any scene that you most particularly want the audience to kind of watch it for? It's like, I'm really proud of this scene or something, this moment.
I think any of the scenes that are just kind of me and John in our room, I cherish getting to do those with him. They were so much fun.
Was there some improv, I assume, in those scenes, or was the script kind of tight?
I think there was maybe a little bit of improv, but I think he was running that. It was like a machine. We were like really having a lot to film in each day, and so he was such a great director and so on top of things that I think there was some room for improv, but more sticking to his brilliant words, at least in my scenes.